This week continues the very anticipated Deku vs Shigaraki fight, and at long last, we get information on the second user's quirk. There is a lot of good stuff in this chapter, so let's dive into chapter 368 of My Hero Academia, titled One for All, Unleashed. Right away, we are still in the UA floating fortress. After controlling his heart and focusing his rage, Deku asks if Shigaraki is still in Shigaraki All for One. His expression is determined, which shows a different side of Deku. I must admit his new look has really grown on me. His scarf wrapped around his neck reminds me of Aizawa. Hopefully that's intentional. Mirio is beside him but is confused by Deku's question. The monster that is Shigaraki All for One then answers Deku. He tells the young hero that he, Shigaraki, is no more. However, this simply isn't true. A few chapters back we saw the brief emergence of Tenko within Shigaraki's consciousness. That alone proves he hasn't fully merged. Shigaraki All for One is merely bluffing. After all, he is still fighting quirkless. He wouldn't want another handicap on top of that. Either way, what Deku asked is important. Despite his intense anger, he probably still wants to save Tenko. Maybe rescuing Tenko will involve separating him from Shigaraki and All for One. Speaking of Tenko, he is seen inside Shigaraki's consciousness. There we see how tormented he looks. Tenko's face has not changed at all. It is the same broken down boy we saw in chapter 361. There is a difference though. Instead of being surrounded by fingers, Tenko is in All for One's grasp. It looks like he's trying to break free from All for One. All the while, the quirk-stealing villain seems to be trying to become one with Tenko, which makes sense. If he is able to fully absorb this rogue part of Shigaraki, the new merged entity would be unstoppable. Stopping that merge should be a priority for the heroes. But as we see Tenko in All for One, Shigaraki All for One lies. He says the two have fully merged. Not only that, but All for One is the one in control. Then he tells Deku, "Don't think you're getting a happy ending." Is this foreshadowing? Right now, Deku is making a dent in Shigaraki All for One's armor. But this is the biggest fight. I doubt we will come to a resolution so soon. Maybe there will be another twist that sends the heroes back again. Despite Shigaraki All for One's harsh words, Deku was undeterred. The villain's words mean nothing to him. Like so many others have told Deku before, he needs to focus his anger. He cannot give in to the rage like he did last war. That being said, Mirio does disagree with Shigaraki All for One. He remembers the split from earlier. It was uncharacteristic of Shigaraki. In fact, Mirio describes Shigaraki's reaction as that of a child throwing a fit. His response was unlike Shigaraki or All for One. So clearly Shigaraki All for One hasn't fully merged, which means there is still a chance to save Tenko. Mirio goes on to say that the more stress Shigaraki All for One experienced, the less stable he was. Again, it's a true statement. Recently, Shigaraki All for One did lose control when Bakugo was blitzing him. Perhaps Shigaraki All for One being unstable means his finger armor is in his final form. Personally, I'm hoping we see several other transformations. He is the poster child for the Doomsday Theory, so seeing his body become inhuman would further that point. But let's get back to the chapter. Shigaraki All for One isn't impressed by Mirio's speech. He doesn't even look bothered. Meanwhile, Deku does look a bit shocked. It's likely he believed he was too late to help Tenko. All for One himself was even betting on Deku making that assumption. Then Shimmer and Anna appears behind Deku. I will say it is good to see her again. Horikoshi always draws her so amazingly. And thankfully she isn't just here for decoration. She notices a face meld from Shigaraki's hand. Unfortunately, it is familiar to her. Tenko's dad makes an appearance yet again as a meat puppet. This fleshy mimic looks at Shimmer and Anna before she calls out to Deku. She confirms that Shigaraki is still inside Shigaraki All for One too. Right after she tells Deku, Shigaraki All for One goes in to attack. The smash is enough to damage the ground around them, though Deku is unaffected by it. Neither party seems to really take damage, so this may end up as a battle of stamina. Even if Deku and Shigaraki All for One don't get hurt, eventually someone will run out of steam. However, that may not be Shigaraki All for One. Immediately after hitting Deku with a smash, he leaps into the air. Once again, the force is enough to damage the battlefield. Actually, it goes beyond that. Shigaraki All for One's jump causes the floating UA fortress to literally shake. We see the momentum has also affected others underneath. Several people react to the sudden movement. However, Hatsume is unresponsive. She is too focused on fixing something, maybe more plates for the arena. At this rate, it is possible Shigaraki All for One could destroy the battlefield before Deku can defeat him. But hopefully that isn't the case, considering I think the fortress is a really interesting backdrop. After leaping into the air, Shigaraki All for One's arm grows insanely large. As he soars towards Deku, the villain exclaims, "Enough talk, I'm taking back my brother's quirk." Bold words coming from a man covered in fingers. Either way, it's obvious Shigaraki All for One is frustrated. Deku received a head-on attack, yet remained uninjured. It is not something Shigaraki All for One anticipated. After all, Deku's body was more fragile the last time they fought. Now he is just as sturdy as Shigaraki. In fact, Deku tanks another hit, which is a feat. The attack itself caused massive damage around them. It even destroyed the reinforced plating. Plus, it caused a crater. Shigaraki All For One is giving his all right now to wound Deku. Yet that may not be enough. Regardless of the insanely powerful smash, Deku is just fine. Then the young hero says that it is All For One who won't have a happy ending. Despite his face being covered by the black whip scarf, we can see the determination coming from Deku's eyes. He is just as desperate to win as All For One. That aside, Deku also debuts a new technique. With Shigaraki All For One in range, Deku combines Black Whip with Fajin. Truthfully, I've been waiting for this moment. With so many quirks, it was a no-brainer Deku would integrate them together. But with this merge comes a totally new ability. Using both quirks causes Black Whip to function more like a chain. It wraps around Shigaraki All For One's arm. It can't just be me, but the panel reminds me by Zawa's capture weapon. Which is a nice touch and just goes to show that we are all mosaics of our loved ones. Deku manages to use Black Chain and throws Shigaraki All For One. And I must say it is refreshing to see Shigaraki take some damage, or at least be ragdolled himself. Up until Deku showed up, he had been an absolute menace. Unfortunately, this does not last long. Shigaraki is able to break free. He then tells Deku, I won't fall for the same move again. It just goes to show that regardless of the situation, Shigaraki All For One will talk trash. Honestly, I was hoping this would be the moment Shigaraki All For One would start to get hurt, but I suppose that is yet to come. Even if he stopped Black Chain, there's still the issue of Deku. He's a powerhouse now, and can keep up, which wasn't something Shigaraki All For One prepared for. His goal was to unnerve Deku enough for a rematch of the last war. Thankfully, that isn't the case at all. Instead, it seems like Shigaraki is the one losing his cool. On the topic of that, the second user appears behind Deku. Before we jump into that, I gotta say the panel is amazing. We see this overpowered pupil as Deku, with energy surging around him. And beyond that, this young hero is none other than a one-for-all holder. Regardless though, he does tell Deku something rather important. Save my quirk for last. Why does he say this? Because if they don't defeat Shigaraki All For One in the next 5 minutes, they are doomed. When I first saw the leaks, I thought it may have been related to Shigaraki All For One, but now I do not think that is the case. The time limit must be related to the second's quirk, which we'll get to shortly. He did tell Deku it has changed within One For All, so maybe 5 minutes is the limit for its use. Plus, the second also said his quirk can be devastating if not used correctly. Could the time limit be how long Deku can use the second's power before it's debilitating? Hopefully we'll find out soon. Although Deku isn't waiting to find out about the 5-minute limit. He agrees with the second, saying that now is the time to end it. Then, we finally learn what the second user's quirk is. Sadly, it has nothing to do with light beams. Fun theory, but at least the quirk has been revealed. Deku touches his own hand as he calls out, Second Transmission. Just as he says that, Shigaraki All For One is hit by an unseen force. The hit sends him airborne, which means it was from Deku. Yet he moves so fast it was invisible to the ultimate evil. This is the power of the second's quirk. This speed is what originally triggered Shigaraki All For One. Bakugo may not have moved this fast, but it was quick enough to throw Shigaraki off. And now we are seeing that speed. Although this quirk does explain the second's gauntlet cannon. It's likely he manipulated the speed of the beam itself. Maybe it was an early support item because of that. But at last, Deku takes it into high gear. Pun intended. He begins to punch Shigaraki All For One with different gears for each punch. It goes from second to third to top gear. And of course the concept of gears themselves makes me think of Luffy. That being said, there is a mechanism for this ability. There are several modes for this quirk, which makes me wonder what it was originally. Was it simply a quirk that manipulated speed with touch? Or did the second also have gears? His quirk has been something I thought about a lot, so I'm hoping we get a flashback soon showing exactly how it has changed. But man, is it strong. The punches Deku delivers immobilize Shigaraki. All he can do is tank the damage. It is even enough to sweep him off his feet, all while energy surges around Deku. Once again, it is a rather satisfying moment to see Shigaraki put in his place. Although that isn't all Deku does. The impact of his relentless attacks causes both hero and villain to become airborne. Not only that, but it breaks the platform they were on. Deku has had so much growth from the last war. He didn't dream of fighting Shigaraki toe to toe like this, and yet here he is. On the ground, Mirio can only watch as Deku continues to smack around Shigaraki All For One. However, he does make an interesting observation. Deku is moving so fast that the sounds of his punches are delayed. He is now faster than the speed of sound, which says a whole lot. This power-up for Deku is a game changer for the heroes. Following that theme, Shigaraki also coughs up blood. The injury does confuse him, He wonders how Deku could possibly hurt him and where he is now. It's an uncharacteristic moment of worry, which shows this fight may be physical and mental. Shigaraki All For One also realizes that Deku's aura is different from Fajin. This, combined with his inhuman speed, causes the villain to put it all together. But just before he does, the second appears again. He exclaims that things are different now. They can defeat All For One. Then, we get a clear explanation of the second's quirk. It's a meta ability that allows the user to change the speed of whatever they touch. It kind of reminds me of the Flash in a way. At least the quickness does. Gotta say, I will never tire of the comic book references. They're like Easter eggs. And you know, funny enough, there is a video on this channel, we made it a while ago, where we predicted the future quirks of One For All. And one of them happened to be a speed quirk, a super speed quirk, so I guess we were right. That being said, as Deku and Shigaraki soar through the air, Deku prepares to use Gear Shift Overdrive. The raw power of it sends Deku flying above Shigaraki All For One, along with streaks of energy around Deku. Meanwhile, Shigaraki All For One is still stunned by the barrage of attacks. He hasn't had the time to think or defend himself. It's obvious that by using transmission, Deku wants to wear the villain down. Though the second's quirk isn't the final reveal, a beautiful 2-page spread acknowledges that Deku has gone plus ultra. Well, actually, it shows the hero is beyond 100%. With the combo of his quirks, Deku has reached 120%. Big news, because Deku could only manage 45% for a very long time. But just as this realization comes, the first user, Yoichi, manifests. He speaks to his brother All For One, telling him that today is the day they finally stop him. Then, Deku delivers a massive Detroit smash. Its impact smashes Shigaraki into the ground and unleashes a burst of energy. Sadly, this is the cliffhanger we end off on this week. But good news, there is not a break. Fingers crossed we get to see Shigaraki's reaction to this attack next week. And listen, now that we actually know it, what do you guys think about the second user's quirk? Are you impressed? Are you disappointed? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.